Flores as a tireless worker for Indian country, like many of us do, wears many hats. One of the hats that he wears that I've done work over the last several years with him is for Oklahoma Tribal Finance Consortium. Virtually every time Indian country opens the door anywhere, Victor's there. So with that, Victor Flores, welcome.
Thanks, Hoyt. And a big thank you to the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of Oklahoma Eastern Chapter. I would be remiss if I didn't also say thank you to some amazing partners of mine. We have Brent Wheeler over here, who's the cameraman, who's going to be doing all the recording. He's the CEO of Big Wheel Media, and so they're a partner of the Oklahoma Tribal Finance Consortium, and they're doing some big things in Indian country, so please reach out to him as well. He'll be doing interviews with everyone who has good things to say about me. So at the end, if you have something good to say about me, please be over there. If not, they do not have enough B-roll to actually capture that. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm actually going to be here today to tell you just a couple of stories that impact Indian country, but more importantly, I'm going to be doing two things. I'm either going to piss you off or I'm going to inspire you, both of which should motivate you to action. Because frankly, our state is starting to slip pretty far down, which you'll see with my numbers. But I initially called this the Collaborative Partnership for Prosperity in Oklahoma, because we really truly have to seek out all partnerships in all levels of government, especially our tribal governments and how they partner with our municipalities, how they partner with local businesses, how they partner with our communities, and more importantly, how they're partnering with the great state of Oklahoma that we all live in. Okay? So let's jump into that. So today I'm going to be covering these 5 things: who Victor Flores is, just a quick slide so that you all know that I'm not just this random guy that's coming up here to speak. I'm going to educate everyone in Oklahoma on what the role of the lieutenant governor is. Because as I'm traveling all across the state, everyone has ideas on what the role does, but no one really knows what they actually do. So I'm going to educate us all. I had to learn a lot of that as well. I'm going to give some highlights on the most recent economic impact study, because that is a great story for all of Oklahoma, not just Indian country. And we should all celebrate it. And as I travel all across our state, I am sharing the good news. And then I'm going to talk about the role of voting in community empowerment, which is the only way forward. And then we'll be talking about, going forward, how our united voices will be the only path to a united victory for the state of Oklahoma. So who is Victor Flores? I'm a father of 2 kiddos. I have a nuclear teenage daughter who is essentially, she's the head boss of me. And then I have a special needs son. I'm a Christian and I'm a conservative. I serve as the president of the Oklahoma Tribal Finance Consortium. I'm also a principal for RDW. Thank you, RDW, Brian, for attending. I'm the previous chairman of the Oklahoma Native Economic Impact Study. I'm the founder of the OSU Tribal Finance and Accounting Program. There's only 3 in the country. Arizona State University, and I copied our program from theirs. Theirs has been running, for at least 25 years. And then I asked them to bring their classes here to Oklahoma. And they said, no, Victor, we like you all spending your money here. And I said, well, we have our own universities and we'll just do it ourselves. And we did. And we did it in 1 year. And even OSU said it couldn't be done. But I said, well, it's going to be done with or without you. And we did it. And that was done because of the partnerships that we had throughout Indian country. And I know that there's a couple of folks here in the room that went through that journey, that fast and furious journey with me, and I really appreciate that. I'm also a small business owner and entrepreneur. I have 9 small businesses that I either own or that I'm a part owner in. I'm a community leader. I'm on 13 nonprofit boards, 13 too many, and I'm on 17 chambers of commerce across the state of Oklahoma. The one that I'm most proud of is that I founded the Greater Oklahoma City Minority Chambers of Commerce. That's when I brought together the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of Oklahoma City, the Asian Chamber, where I was the president at the time, the Greater Oklahoma City Hispanic Chamber, and then the Black Chamber of Oklahoma City. I brought them together for a couple different things. Number one, getting people out to vote, because that minority vote has been lacking, and you'll see here in a minute what that impact is. Number two is that, when we met with the mayor and when we met with OKC Thunder on the build of the new arena, we said, hey, we as a large group of small business owners that are minority business owners, we want a seat at the table, right? If it's construction or if it's vendors or whatever the case is, we wanted a seat at the table. How does everyone else get at that seat, right? And so we asked for education, and we also asked for reporting back to that leadership. And then also for the state legislature. Thank you so much for those of you all that came out during that legislative day. It was a powerhouse to show that all four of those minority chambers came together, went to the Capitol, stood side by side with a lot of state legislature and said, hey, we matter, and our voices united is powerful. And that's kind of the story that I'm going to be really saying today. But first, let's go through what's happening in 2026. In 2026, all 9 of these executive offices are up, right? Governor Stitt cannot stay on. Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell, I like him. I'm sure you all like him as well. He is not running because he can't, right? So none of these folks are going to be staying in their positions, right? And so everyone is termed out. And so when I had my team a year ago look at all of these 9 positions, they're like, hey, Victor, you should go for state auditor, or you should go for treasurer or corporation commission. You're a business guy. These are the ones that fit for you. And I'm not going for the office of the lieutenant governor because it sounds cool. It's the one that does the least amount of meetings, and it's the one that has the most opportunity to bring Oklahoma together. Because that's what we need right now, is Oklahoma to come together. Yeah, I'd be a great auditor. Probably, no, okay, maybe not so much. Brian's an auditor. But at least for that elected position, I'd be a great auditor. I'd be a great treasurer, great corporation commission. But those don't have the opportunity to bring folks together. But let's talk more about what the lieutenant governor role does. Okay, I don't know why it's going past that, but it's right here. Responsibilities of the lieutenant governor. Boom. Okay. And so from a statutory perspective, they serve on the Oklahoma archives and records. I really don't have an impact on that. They're the vice chairman of the Oklahoma Capital Improvement Authority. I know some folks in construction, but that's not really an area for me to go big on. They serve as the chairman and the voting member for the Oklahoma Tourism and Recreation. So tourism is big for me. Tourism is big for the state. And, in fact, tourism is the number 3 industry that we have here in the state of Oklahoma. And guess what tourism touches? Our tribal nations, right? Our tribal enterprises, some of your native-owned businesses, our casinos, obviously, is a big portion of that. They also serve as an ex officio member of the Native American Cultural and Education Authority. And so what lieutenant governor do you know in the past that's reached out to our tribal nations to say, hey, how can we partner better together, right? We need that partnership in that senior elected position. They also serve as on the CompSource Oklahoma Board of Directors, and then the deposit programs for agriculture, that's us, small business, that's us, rural, that's us, affordable housing tied in with the state treasurer. But the roles of the lieutenant governor is that they are the president of the Senate. Now, what does that mean? That means that any time that the lieutenant governor walks on the Senate floor, they have to hand him or her the mic, right? And then at that point, the head of the Senate can say, I'm going to read this bill, and I'm going to ask everyone to vote on it. Now, you can't make them vote a certain way, but you could walk in every day and read the same bill that has an impact on us Oklahomans, regular Oklahomans. right? But why hasn't anyone done that? Because most of our politicians are lifelong politicians and they don't want to rock the boat. Okay, I'm a business person. I'm not going into politics to be in politics. I'm going into politics because I'm going to ring the bell really loud for us business owners and for all of the communities that I represent, and I'm going to say, we matter. And then I'm going to go back and to keep making a whole lot of money, because that's what I like doing, frankly. Also, the commissioner of the land office, as well as the State Board of Equalization, that's tied to property taxes. So commercial taxes, your property taxes for your businesses, your personal property taxes, as well as tax incentives, right? And so back in December, I traveled with Governor Stitt, some state legislature, as well as community leaders across our state to Asia. We went to Taiwan, we went to South Korea, and went to Japan. And in each of those places, we played our commerce video, our Department of Commerce video, which I was not asked about. And our role was to bring Oklahoma to Asia and invite those Asia businesses to come back to Oklahoma, especially those manufacturing jobs. Well, when we played our video, it didn't show not one minority. It didn't show one Asian, didn't show anything about Indian country, and it didn't even show, and when we showed the OKC Thunder, it was the stadium and the logo. And so Governor Stitt walks up to me, and he knows not to bring up Indian country, and I know not to bring it up to him, because then we just argue for no apparent reason. I don't know why. But he said, "Hey, Victor, how do you think we did?" And I was like, "Sir, you said these things great, but from a business perspective, we weren't playing to our customers." He was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, "Sir, there wasn't one Asian on the commerce video. In fact, there wasn't one minority. And you mentioned diversity. Sir, there was zero diversity on our video, which tells all of them they're not welcome." He understands it from a business perspective. And so when I speak to our state governor, I always talk from a business perspective. And he said, "Heather, get over here, talk to Victor and fix that." Well, we are already there. And so in Japan, we actually presented to this large group called Kanindran, which was the top 100 businesses in Japan. And in fact, Japan is the #1 foreign direct investor in the United States. And they even showed a map of the U.S. and in which country, and in which state they spend the most money. And we're beating Montana and one other state. Montana and I think Maine. But Kansas is beating us. Kentucky is beating us. And I'm kind of like, hey, what's going on? We're in the center of the U.S., I-35, I-44, I-40 corridors. Why are we getting beat? Because we're not showcasing ourselves, we're not marketing ourselves the right way to the largest foreign direct investor in the United States, right? And so that's something that also the Lieutenant Governor does, is that they market the state of Oklahoma outside, but also internally to each other. And you'll see why that's important here shortly. But first, let me pause here and let me talk about the great success of our tribal nations here, or as they continue to flourish here in the state of Oklahoma. And this information that I share across the state to a lot of non-natives is important, because I tell them, hey, this win is your win, right? Because of employment, because of the roads and bridges that you're driving on, because of the education that they're pouring into, because of the community that we're taking care of, because of healthcare. If you remember back in COVID days, our tribal health systems were the first ones in the state of Oklahoma to start giving out those vaccines, right? And so that's a small example of how our tribal nations and our enterprises are partnering with our local communities, and that's how it should be. But let's talk about some of these numbers. And so this is for FY23, $23.4 billion in economic impact in the state of Oklahoma. Let me say that again because I don't think that you all heard it. $23.4 billion in economic impact in the state of Oklahoma. Yeah. Yeah. I know that I'm speaking to the crowd here and we all get it, but the rest of Oklahoma does not get it. I'm traveling all across the state and I'm traveling with the folks that I'm running against or with, however you look at it, as well as all of the other offices. And so the governor candidates, the AG candidates, and no one is talking about Indian country unless they're in front of you all, right? I mean, I'm in those same rural presentations, and believe me, I'm not welcome in most of them. But I still have to show up to let them know, hey, you know, I have good news to share, and also a little bit of bad news to share with the state of Oklahoma. That the only way through is that we have to be united. But partnering with Indian country is the right path forward. How long has it been that we've had true state partnership with our tribal nations? I mean, I can't think back, right, to a time to where our tribal nation said, yes, we have a strong seat at the table. That they are honoring us like we should. The state of Oklahoma should honor our partnerships with Indian country, right? 140,000 jobs, most of them are non-native jobs that are in rural communities. That without those jobs, there'd be urbanization. And all these rural markets that we're in right now would be suffering a whole lot more. Without those gaming jobs, those healthcare jobs, banking jobs, a lot of great paying jobs throughout rural Oklahoma, right? $7.8 billion in salaries and wages that stay in Oklahoma, right? And so why is that important? The longer the economic dollar churns in a community, that's how wealth is generated. In Indian country, typically that economic dollar churns 1 to 3 times and then it leaves the community. We need to do a better job looking for ways to keep that economic dollar inside of Indian country, where it's tribal nations and tribal enterprises servicing each other, and then native-owned businesses serving tribal nations and each other, right? That way we keep that economic dollar churning in that community. A lot of our tribal nations are seeing the benefit of that. I mean, look what's happening here in this part of the state with the Northeast 9 partnering together, sometimes collaborating together, not only with each other, but also with our local community, right? And so that's a great example of what that looks like. But here's even a cooler chart. From 2011 to 2023, look at the rise of our jobs and our economic input in billions of dollars, right? It's a steady increase upward. And that should be so these indicators should be a very positive statement to all Oklahomans, native and non-native, to say, hey, with the partnership of our tribal nations that are never leaving the state of Oklahoma, this is a positive story that no one is really out there championing as, very loud at all. And they should be. And when I'm out there in rural communities, this is the first time that they're hearing it. And they're seeing it. And they're like, wow, we didn't know that. Well, everyone in Oklahoma should know. And so now I'm going to transition to the role of voting in community empowerment, right? And so we are at a crux in Oklahoma. So over here to the left, you'll see 2024, our overall ranking when compared to other states, we're 46. Back in 2024, we were 49 in education, 45th in healthcare. Just this month, our ranking in education went down to 50. How loud was that bell? It should have been louder. It could have been louder. In June, our ranking fell to 49. That's why I gathered tribal health leaders, state legislature, business owners, physicians from across the state to say, hey, we're ranked 49. And I'm in healthcare as well. And I just said, WTF. This is not good. This is not good for economic development for the state, because if we're trying to attract manufacturing to come to the state, What's the number one cost for businesses? I'm a CFO, I know. Healthcare costs, right? And education is workforce development. So if the future employees of my company that I'm trying to bring here to the state of Oklahoma is not that smart and they're very unhealthy, which is going to be a large cost, what's the incentive of me coming? Thank goodness our economy is good right now. Thank goodness for that. That's the only thread that we're hanging on. But believe me, with these two new low rankings, our overall ranking is going to go down, and so will our economy. So we better pay attention, because frankly, right now, we've fallen asleep at the wheel. But what is that tied to? That's tied to Oklahoma in the last presidential election was number 50 in voter turnout. We were bottom last in voter turnout. And what's crazy is that we increased the number of voters and we're still below, right? So back in 2024, over 50% of all registered voters of the 2.3 million at the time. Right now we have 2.4 million registered voters, but back in 2024 we had 2.3 registered voters. Over 50% of those voices went silent, right? And so I'm sure that there's some D's in the room or some R's in the room. If you look at the numbers, over 51% of our registered voters are Republican, 28% are Democrats, almost 1% Libertarians, and 19% Independents. Interestingly enough, from 2020 to 2024, there was an increase of 100,000 of the Independents. But I'm sure that people in this room are saying, well, Victor, if I'm a Democrat, what's the use of me voting, right? I'm not going to win in my vote anyways. My voice is not going to count. Or you might be a Republican. You might say, well, hey, we have the numbers. Why should I go vote, right? And so here's what I didn't know. Everyone that's running gets the exact same sheets by county and by the state. And we see by gender, by demographic, by age group, who has voted in the last 8 elections. You can go further back. But for the folks that are running, we typically look at the last 8 years. And if anyone looks at that right now, you all have access to that too, but it's really nice because they actually print it out and it's in a nice packet. What's interesting is that when you look at that, it really shows that women 51 and older are the voters. They're called the 4x4s. They vote every single time. And that's why there's a lot of the women Republican groups or the women Democrat groups that anyone that's running, we go to them because those are the folks that are going to vote. But everyone else, youth, 18 to 25, not much of an increase. And they are drastically quiet. So I'm going to universities and I'm saying, wake up, because your future is essentially being decided on by someone else. And if you don't wake up, then guess what? You're not going to have anything when you're trying to go buy your next house, right? And here's the other thing. If Democrats don't come out and vote, I don't care who you're voting for, Democrat or Republican, if you don't show up and vote as minorities, that's the thing, minorities. I mean, while Hispanics had an increase, Native Americans didn't have very much of an increase. In fact, we had a decrease in the 2022 midterm. There was a decrease in that. Blacks also didn't have much of an increase as well. And so it's showing, and so that information would show anyone that's running, why would I cater to Native Americans or to Hispanics or to blacks or to youth? Why should I cater to them? Because they don't come out and vote. That's why every single vote counts. And we have to vote every year. And I'm trying to teach my daughter now, we have to vote every year, because I don't even care how she votes. You just have to vote so that at least you can say, my My voice was not silent. Over 1 million voices of Oklahomans did not get out there and vote. And look at our scores. So we can't complain that our scores for the state is going so low, right? 2.4 million voters right now in Oklahoma, right? Oddly enough, June 23rd, 2026 is the primary election. Not many people know that. It's not even public information yet. Why is that? That date should be popular. And also, people who have never voted don't know how primaries work. So I'm here to educate everyone today. If you're Republican, you could only vote Republican in the primary. Let me say that again so that everyone's clear. If you're Republican, you could only vote Republican, right? If you're independent or Democrat, you can vote independent or Democrat, right? Because independents are allowed to vote in the Democrat primary, not in the primary for the Republicans. And so why is June 23rd important? Because only one Republican candidate for governor, only one Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, and any of the other races will come out of that race. So on November 3rd, which is the general election for everyone, there will only be one Democrat for each of those positions, only one Republican for each of those positions, right? There won't be multiples of those. There might be multiple independents. And that's important to know. We have to make June 23rd, 2026 popular. And my campaign is going to go out there and we're going to make that popular because it's important. And we're definitely going to make November 3rd, 2026 popular. So how does voting influence policy and representation, right? Obviously, there's a community voting impact. And the other key thing is diverse representation, right? We have a lot of diverse voices in Oklahoma. I know I'm traveling all across Oklahoma. There's a lot of different voices, whether you're rural or urban, native, non-native, small business owner, new entrepreneur, a lot of different voices. But we seem to keep fighting so much for the different silos and we push others away. Well, that's not a good way to move Oklahoma forward if we're only focused on ourselves. And that's what we've been doing. And that's everyone. I don't care if you're rural or urban, small business, native, non-native. We've all been doing it because I've been seeing it. And that's why we're falling asleep at the wheel. I found this cup, which is resonating with the youth, but it says, I don't care if you walk, run, roll, or twerk to the polls, just get out there and vote. It's really important because when we see community-led initiatives, whether it's Rock the Native vote or tribal nations trying to educate their members on why to vote, as well as strengthening collaboration with those community partnerships, right? If we want to see any kind of change in Oklahoma, it has to be together, right? You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to agree with you, but we can agree that we want our state where we're raising our kids, that we want it to be better. So we can agree on that, right? And as Oklahomans, I don't know where we lost our way, because in disasters, our people come together better than anyone else that I've seen. And I've traveled all across the country, right? But then here in the last, I would say 8-10 years, as soon as a disaster ends, we go back to saying, oh, well, Hoyt, you're my enemy now because you're rural and I'm urban. Or you're native, I'm non-native, or whatever the case is. We are seeing divided lines when we should be seeing, hey, you're Oklahoman, I'm going to try to do business with you first. I don't care if you're native, non-native, red, blue, urban, rural. If you're Oklahoman, let's do business together. And that's how our state starts to rise. Our role as leaders, as business leaders, tribal leaders, economic development leaders, our role is to encourage that civic engagement. Part of our responsibility, and I know that there's folks in the room that have been doing it for years. Well, we have to look at other creative ways, and we can't give up. We have to say, hey, these ways of rock the native vote may not have been working. Well, why? Well, let's do something else. We can't just say, well, natives don't vote, so might as well not even do it. We have to find different ways to wake each other up. We have to do it because, whether that's fostering civic duties, promoting election participation. I know, I met with the election commission because I said, hey, we're ranked 50 in voter turnout. What can we do? And they just handed me 100. It was 100 of the voter registration paper. You could also do it online, by the way. I'm going to be posting out about that. But just handing out those voter registrations, which I still do. I still go to powwows and all across the state where I'm invited, and I still pass them out, and I still say, hey, your voice matters. Please register to vote. Obviously, the younger folks want to do it online, and you can register online. It's a whole lot easier to do it that way. But then going back to those 2 dates, we have to remember to get out there and vote. And so, as I said, the only path forward is for us to have united voices, right? And so this is kind of one of my themes that I'm educating everyone on, all across Oklahoma. I don't care how you vote, get out and vote. The thing that we can agree on together as all Oklahomans is that Oklahoma isn't doing okay anymore. Okay? It's actually, and our economy is going to start to tank because healthcare went down, education went down, voter turnout is still at the bottom. We are in a tornado right now. And we need to wake up and we need to look up and we need to say, hey, neighbor, wake up. We have to get into this fight. Addressing challenges, equity, communication, mutual respect. I'm telling you right now, and Brittany has been in some of those rooms with me, I'm in some rooms across the state of Oklahoma where there isn't mutual respect. And I know that you all have seen it, historically as well. But that's why we have to get and vote to get out and vote. That's why it's important for you all to be running for your school board, for your city council, or for your county commission, right? They need to see people like us of diverse backgrounds in these offices, right? Because if it's going to be more of the same, guess what? It's going to be more of the same, right? And so we can't say, well, I expect Brian to take care of it for me. Brian, take care of it for me. No, we have to partner with Brian. We have to say, hey, Brian, let me educate you on some of these things. Or, Brian, can you educate me on some of these processes? We have to overcome those equity barriers. We can't just say, I'm a minority, I'm a woman, I'm Native, whatever the case, and say, well, I'm not going to have that much of a chance. People have fought for us to have this chance. So we do have to go fight for that chance. We have to look for ways to foster mutual respect. And my language is business and numbers. And that's why I share economic impact. Because everyone likes big numbers. And they were like, oh, wow, that's really good. And they understand that number perspective. You may have a distinct way from your position as a leader, as a business owner, for you to educate other Oklahomans. And I challenge you all to do that because we have to do that together. Sustaining Oklahoma's prosperity requires inclusive leadership and decision making that incorporates diverse community voices. And I'm talking to all of you all, obviously, here in the room, and fostering that shared ownership of outcomes. I have a closing statement that I'll give here. Oklahoma is in a tornado right now. Not the ones that we see on the news or not the ones that we walk out to our back porch and say, hey, look at that. But we're ranked 50 in education, which you heard me say. We're ranked 49th in healthcare, 50th in voter turnout. ranked number 1 in domestic violence and number 1 in women incarceration. Guys, we're in an F5 tornado. What's scary is that somehow many of us are still asleep to some of these numbers. Maybe not you all, but your neighbors or your family members are asleep at the wheel, and other leaders are as well. And we keep pointing fingers at politicians or the healthcare providers or the school teachers. We point the finger at everyone else except ourselves. But the ones who have the power to change this is actually us, each and every one of you all, and your vote. Oklahoma isn't failing because we have a lack of resources. We're failing because of a lack of unity, a lack of a sense of urgency, and a lack of personal accountability. Disengagement is our common enemy. We have to see disengagement, which a lot of us Oklahomans are. We have fallen disengaged in the voting process as well as in the process that has an impact here in our state of Oklahoma. Why are we more worried about what's going on in D.C. than we are here in our own backyard? We should be just as much worried about what's happening here in our backyard than what's going on in D.C. It's time to wake up. It's time to show up. It's time to vote. It's time to lead, to listen, and to build together. We only rise by taking responsibility, and we win by coming together. We, each and every one of us, have to join in on this fight against disengagement. Let's stop waiting for someone else to fix it, because no one else is going to come to fix it. Our politicians are not going to come to fix this, right? We have to start becoming the people who take action ourselves. I stand here before you all today, not just as a candidate for lieutenant governor, but as a proud Oklahoman. It's not about politics for me. It's about the people. It's about us. It's about business owners. It's about our families. It's about creating a future where all of us rise together. Native or non-native, rural or urban, business and community, we all need to rise together. Oklahoma is at a crossroads, and what we do next in this upcoming election next year will determine the election or will determine the direction that we take for generations to come. So we have to be mindful and choose leaders that are talking about coming together all across Oklahoma. Every voice matters and every vote counts. And it's going to take every leader and every community leader to pound that into the lives of everyone that we touch. You all are going to be able to touch people that I'll never be able to interact with, right? And so we all have that same responsibility. So I ask you, not just as voters, but as visionaries, to join with me on this fight and to unite our state with leadership that brings people together. Let's rise better and stronger together. Because when Oklahoma is united, there's nothing that we can't overcome, and there's everything that we can achieve together. When voices are united, we will find a united victory. Thank you so much for listening.